this. The actual catheter will come in the plastic wrap. And we'll make sure to wheel this in. We obviously have this VCR looking thing. This is actually your SPY capital piece. This up here is your EHL, electrohydraulic lithotripsy. And you'll just be using this piece just for large stone therapy. So as Tim can attest, sometimes the hardest part is to actually attach this lever here around the duodenoscope. So Tim, I'm going to play physician if you, or Dell, if you want to actually step up.
You can do it.
You can do it. And Dell is going to, we're going to line up dials to dials. So the duodenoscope right here, and the dials here. You're going to have your Spyscope dials right below it. Now, you don't want it too far below because the Spyglass will actually slip down. You actually want it butting up right against your locking device. So Dell, just like you would, go ahead and pull that. And yep. And actually, how about I do it first? If you want to play physician, and we're going to hold it a little bit lower. I'm going to leave this zone open directly below the locking device. I'm going to pull it out and then around. Some people try to just pull it right from here. We made the strap extra sturdy and kind of hard to pull around because we want it to obviously stay secure throughout the whole procedure. So from there, the tech will actually plug in this portion into our Spyglass. I'm going to turn on the power button just like you would imagine. It's going to light up green. There's about a 10-second delay till you're going to see the Spyscope image actually show up on our screen. And the way I did that is to have it interact with our tower. On the very back, there's an S-video cable that actually lives in the back of your guys' tower. So just make sure to plug that into the Spyscope. And if you guys can all see that, this yellow cord here, we've marked it with permanent marker right there. And you're actually going to see, I think Tim marked this with permanent marker. You just want to make sure these prongs line up so that it goes directly into that port. So I'll spin that back around. I'm going to plug this in. You have the arrow up. That's going to be the side that goes into this little port here. And I'm actually going to hear an audible click when it actually fits in properly. So you actually heard that. You'll see that these light sources here turn on. You know, as we're loading it over the guide wire, the catheter, we might want to turn the light source off. So I can just hit this light bulb button here, turn that off, and I'm ready to actually load it over the guide wire. So as with, you know, your priming extractor probe balloons or any kind of device, you typically want to prime our device with saline. So I'm going to take a 10 cc or 20 cc syringe of saline. I'm going to inject through this port. That's just our main working channel that we're going to use to send either SpyBite or EHL. And then we have these two ports hanging off the side. Raindrops, that's just for irrigation. So we're going to use our Spyglass irrigation tubing, which is right near all the other Spyglass stuff. Go ahead and set that up as you would any other irrigation.
Yeah, I was going to tell them that this is when you're doing a Spyglass, usually we don't hook up the irrigation to the scopes because there's no port for irrigation. So,
correct.
But if you know we're going to do a Spyglass, you need to hook the water.
This goes on the saline. That's why we have those 250 saline bottles?
Yes.
That's what that's for? Okay.
Yeah. And there's an off-color portion of the tubing. That's where you load onto the irrigator.
Same as the other tubing, you know.
Does that make sense? I can open this up.
Tubing so when the wheels go around, it pumps the water.
So they go through the water.
So as you would expect, this is going to fit onto our saline, which we actually have one.
Right behind you.
Okay. So we can hook this up to our saline. Put this in there. Hook this up to through our little irrigation portion and make sure it's going the correct direction. And then we're going to hook this up directly to where the raindrops are. And you're going to want to flush this prior to going up inside the column bile duct, just like you would, you know, an extractor probe balloon or anything else. And just to make sure we're all on the same page with keeping everything uniform, this is the suction port. Just keep it closed until we actually decide we get inside the duct. Typically they've already done a cholangiogram prior to actually going up with SPY. So it's, and you know, contrast kind of creates a very filmy seafoam image. So you want to just close that port off until we're actually ready to use suction. And for suction, you can use, you know, probably a 20 cc Luer lock syringe, but you can go all the way up to 40, but we don't want to probably go above that in a small common bile duct. So we've primed everything. We know that, you know, our image is live. I've turned off the light bulb. And then we want to take a step back, physically take a step back and unwhirl all of our catheter. If you might imagine, if I were to go down like this, it's going to cause a kink in the catheter. And that might, you know, interfere with when we're passing devices. It might actually keep us from passing them smoothly. So just like any other device, you're going to go directly over the guide wire. I turned off my light source so I'm not being blinded. And you'll notice there's a little bevel portion. I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little bevel portion right at the very tip. This is 10 French, so it's just like putting a 10 French stent up in the duct.
Oh, no, that's okay.
But you can even feel with your finger that that's the bevel portion. Put it directly over the guide wire. And people are like, okay, where's the guide wire going to pop out? It's actually going to pop out at our main channel right here, where we're going to put all of our other devices. So this is a dummy scope. I'm actually not going to attempt to try to feed this through. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unlock this. And I'm going to continue feeding this through. Keep feeding this through, and then the wire is actually going to eventually pop out. Now we have this instrument here. I would always advise putting this on, especially if you're doing EHL. The reason being, when the wire pops through here, occasionally you have to lock down this port, and that's going to keep the wire still and also allow us to use suction if we need to during the case. So I'll keep feeding this through. I'll turn my light source on. You can do that at any time. You can turn it off. And you'll notice it defaults to 3 bulbs. I think it's a pretty good idea to just leave it at that. You know, if we were up in maybe really up in the paddocks and we need a little more brightness, we can always up that. Or if we're, you know, a really dilated duct, you can even lower that as well. So I'll keep feeding that through. We're going to eventually go up inside the duct. And then from here, Dell can go ahead and maneuver, just manipulate with the dials here inside of our duct. So if you guys want to take a look at this image, I'll go ahead and take this from you. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm going to keep on feeding this through our duodenoscope. I'm going to get up towards the bifurcation. And if I want, I can go ahead and follow that, or even if it's a really dilated duct, go ahead and maneuver in the duct. The physicians know there's a half lock position. So let's say, you know, we're in the duct, it's a little fidgety. You can always go to a half lock position or a full lock position. And that's really helpful during EHL when you're having to blast a stone. Maintaining position, especially in the distal duct, is very challenging, or can be challenging. So using this half lock or full lock position really helps to stabilize the catheter.
But they do that, right?
They do that. Yeah. That's just for your guys' own knowledge. So let's say I'm inside the duct and I decide that I want to take a biopsy. The visual impression of the duct looks, you know, very irregular. You know, maybe we're suspecting cancer up in the paddocks. Dell, if you wouldn't mind reaching for that.
This way?
Yep.
No, the pizza.
Or the or a slice of pizza.
We got plenty.
Oh, what is this? Oh.
So this is Spybite. So Spybite, it's 1 millimeter forceps. They're extremely tiny, but compared to cytology, this piece of tissue to pathologists looks under a microscope very big. So I know we've done quite a few cases here. So go ahead and take that out if you wouldn't mind just unrolling that for me.
Now we're going to irrigate this as well before, or
Yeah, I mean, we could intermittently throughout the case, you know, irrigate. I think once you get inside the duct, you probably want to suction as much of that contrast or Conrad out of the duct because it helps clear the visualization. And, you know, you can use any amount of suction or irrigation. You don't want to necessarily fill the duct entirely where you're, you know, shooting a lot of water up in the hepatic ducts. But, you know, when you're initially getting spy in, you can feel free to irrigate at will. So as you guys might imagine, I'm going to feed this through our instrument channel. And as most physicians experience, you're going to feel, this is more for the physician, they're going to experience some pressure because you imagine the elevator, the duodenoscope is coming at this angle and we're trying to traverse this really acute angle and get inside the duct. So what we're going to do to kind of, I'm just going to pull this back to about mid-duct, keep pushing this through. I'm actually going to pretend that I'm feeling some pressure. Oops. So at a certain point, you might see the physician start to, they're pushing this, they're getting a lot of pressure. Sometimes they do like a walk the dog, but what I've seen work well is once we feel that pressure from the elevator into the ampulla, we're just going to push the entire SpyScope catheter and it's going to advance everything in unison past that pressure point. And then from there, the spy bite should be about there since we advanced it forward, and then I could freely push it from there. So as you guys might imagine, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, small lumens and a lot of things, irrigation, suction channels, our biopsy port running through this catheter. So it's a 1.2 minimum working channel and 1 millimeter forceps running through that. So it's a pretty tight space. So using that little trick of pushing the catheter forward really seems to make a difference. So let's say, I'm actually going to turn it down the brightness a little bit just so we can, so let's say I see cancer or you know, suspected malignancy there. I'm going to push it forward. I might angulate my scope just towards maybe the right side of the wall. And then I'll tell Del to go ahead and open the forceps. I'll push it against that. Go ahead and close.